Hello and welcome to a recording of the service request, the service catalog request process. In this recording, I'm going to take you through 3 examples of the request fulfillment process using the service catalog in ServiceNow. I'm going to take you through these processes end to end. The 3 that I'm going to be doing in this session: first, password reset. I'll also be doing a new SharePoint site, and then I'll also be doing a general request. I selected these 3 because they're probably the most representative of the common features and functions that you'll see in other requests as well. So each of them will have a request submission form. Each of them will have a series of follow-up tasks and or approval tasks. Okay, I'm logged in here as the training user. Training user, then first thing you would do as this particular user is you'd navigate either to the service catalog under self-service or the catalog under the service catalog application. These 2 links take you to the same place. Now, the things that you see on this page are potentially restricted based on your role or your department or even maybe even your location. So there might be some things that appear on your service catalog that might not appear here because this particular user is not considered a manager. Let's do the simple one first, and we'll just hit the password reset. I choose the password reset option, and I see that there is a requested for name. So I'm just going to put in myself, training user. I'm going to make up a phone number. And I'm also going to choose a location. Since this user doesn't really have complete data, you don't see a full set of data appear in those other places. I then also pick the application that I would like to have the password reset for. I'm just going to choose my Citrix password. Once completed, I can click Order Now. The Order Now link takes me to a page that allows me to confirm what I'm actually requesting. I can expand this individual item to see the details behind it. I'm asking to get my Citrix password reset. Once I hit Submit Order, an order has now been submitted to the service desk. If I come to the Service Catalog application, under the Open Records section, I see a Requests, Items, and Tasks module. The request module shows the overall arching request that contains one or more request items. In this particular case, I see that the training user submitted a training request on a specific date and time. The items that are on that particular request, the only item that was there is a password reset. There's not a tremendous amount of information that is valuable to someone at the request level, unless of course you're reporting on metrics around how many requests do we manage a day, how many requests get created, how many requests get closed. At the item level is where you see a little more interesting detail. I can go to this individual request item either by clicking the link here or by clicking the items module. By clicking the items module, I can now find that that password reset item is at the top of the list. To go to its detail, I can simply click its number. When I click the item number, I see password reset is the item that was requested. I also see the variables and questions that I was asked when I did the initial submit. There are also some places here for me to add some additional comments. As I scroll down below, I see that there is one catalog task and that one SLA record has begun to calculate. This is going to check the overall SLA, which is expected to be a single business day for this password reset. The one task that exists here is in a state of open, and it's been assigned to the service center, but no individual has taken responsibility for it yet. The description, they're expected to verify the user's information. If someone were to take ownership of that particular task, they could open the task record and put their name on it. Let's say, for example, we're going to have Jason work on this one. Okay, Jason makes a couple phone calls, verifies that training user is who he says he is, and can then answer this question: were you able to verify the user? By clicking yes, Jason may decide to add a few work notes and additional comments, maybe add some more information about the description of this task. But eventually what Jason would do is close the task. Once the task is closed, the user will go back to the original request item that's displayed. And as we scroll down to the bottom, we see now we have 2 catalog tasks. We have a second one. The first catalog task is closed complete. A second catalog task has been created to reset the password. I can now click that task, and maybe Jason's going to do this one for us also. Puts himself on that task, goes to the Citrix application, and resets the password for training user. I can now click Close Task. Once I click Close Task, it takes me back to my request item, and I see now that the stage of my request item is completed. Let's go back and take a look at the overall request. The overall request no longer appears at the top of our screen because it's no longer considered an active request. If I clear the filter here, I now would see that there's my training user request, which is currently in a state of closed complete. It no longer appears as active. So that's a fairly simple example of an end-to-end request. Now let's take a look at the new SharePoint site request. When I click the new SharePoint site link from my service catalog, I see that I have a few more fields to fill out this time. It's a slightly larger form. Some forms that you might come across might have an extensive amount of variables, of questions that you need to answer. On a break here, I made a few quick adjustments to my user account. So when I chose training user, my phone number, my job title, and my department have all been filled in. I do still fill in a location here, and I am going to have to provide a SharePoint site name. I'm going to ask for test site. Owners of the site, network ID, I'm going to use just a number. I'm just going to make up a number. I don't have any actual values to use there. And then I'm going to pick a few of the features that I want to include on my SharePoint site. When I click Order Now, I have the option to look at the details of my request or simply Submit Order. Once the order has been submitted, I can look at my stages, and I see that my first stage here is waiting for approval by training admin. That is actually the line manager of who I am requesting for. The line manager of the training user is training admin. So let's take a look at what that request looks like. I open up the request and I see that at the request level there's a single item on that request. When I look at the item for the new SharePoint site, and I scroll down, I see I don't have any catalog tasks yet, but I do have something here on my Approvers tab. The Approvers tab has a Training Admin Approval request. This says that the approval has been requested. Okay. Now I'm going to do something here that developers are allowed to do as part of their debugging purposes. I'm going to imitate somebody else. I'm going to then go to the My Approvals tab, and I see that there are a couple of approvals that are sitting there waiting. As the administrator, I might look at all of these approvals and say, yes, I'm okay with them. I'm going to choose to approve multiple items at the same time. Now they've been marked as approved. Let's go back as the original account, training user, and let's take a look at that request item now. When I look at that particular request item and I look at its stage, I've completed the waiting for approval, and now we're in a development in progress stage. When I look at the item and scroll down to the bottom, I see the approver is now marked as approved, but something has been added to my catalog tasks. My first catalog task has been created and assigned to the system admin group. The description here of site creation development is what the systems admin group has been asked to do. Now I want to change perspectives here for a second. I'm not going to log in as a different person, but I just want to approach this data from a different angle for just a moment. Let's say, for example, you're a person on the systems admin team, and you're not directly focused on what items are being requested, but you are the person who's been assigned to complete all of the tasks with this particular description. What you might do is you might go to the tasks module, and just because I know it's at the top of the list, I'm going to sort, and from my tasks module, I'm going to find one that says Site Creation Development, right-click, and Show Matching. And what I see here, there are 4 tasks asking me to do the same thing. If this procedure is relatively consistent, I could go do these 4 tasks all at the same time. I might be Ken, for example. Ken might decide to assign himself to all 3 of those. Okay. If you don't remember how to do that from our navigation training, I held down the Shift key, I left-clicked my mouse, and I dragged my way through the fields that I wanted to update. When I had the fields chosen, I double-clicked, and it gave me the ability to then set those values. So if I'm Ken, I can now peel these off one at a time. I see I need to create a test site. This is the owner. This is who I'm creating it for. These are the features that they want included. I can take those actions and then add any notes to my work notes, maybe additional comments if I have any questions back for the person who requested this, and I can then close my task. And you see, that one task is no longer on my to-do list. I do have 3 more I can complete. This is an opportunity for you to use tasks as a way to help you complete repetitive tasks. Let's say, for example, you're deploying a whole bunch of laptops or desktops, and they all need to be imaged. This can work as a checklist of all of those records that need to be completed. I'm going to go back to my request item, and I see that now, actually, I jumped too fast. My stage on that request item has moved a step further. I'm now in testing. So when I come into my request item and I scroll down, I should expect to see that there is an open task telling someone to test the site. Just like before, when Ken was looking at the tasks to tell him to go build sites, this might be an opportunity for Greg to come in and say, I'm going to test all of those sites. Greg can assign himself to those tasks, verify that all the features that were asked for are there, add any work notes or additional comments, and then close the task. When he closes the task, it goes back to that request item again, back to our request item. Towards the bottom, I see there's now a 3rd task. This task is slightly different. This is not assigned to a group. This is assigned directly to the person who requested the SharePoint site in the first place. This is asking for someone to say, yes, I'm going to verify that you did the work correctly. I'm going to open that task. I can add any comments. I can change the state of it. I could say something was closed incomplete if it wasn't done correctly. In this particular case, I'm just going to say that it was closed complete. I come back to my item, and there's one final task. And this final task is for the system administrators to go back in and say, yes, the customer has verified the work we've done. It's now finished. I can close this task off completely. That closes the overall request item. Another example of a request. We're going to go back to the service catalog. Now, in this particular case, I'm asking for a general request. The general request is what you'd use if you don't really see anything else on this list that lets you ask for what you need. The general request is intended to be somewhat of a catch-all. You're going to be asked to describe what it is you're asking for. Good practice over time is that as GHS monitors these special requests or these general requests, and you find that maybe people are asking for something very specific, you might start realizing that you need to create actual request items for them to be a little more efficient. In this particular case, the form's very simple. It asks you if you are submitting this on behalf of yourself or for someone else. If you say that it's for someone else, then more fields appear. In this particular case, I can change the actual requested for. And if the system knows things like a telephone number, it will automatically fill them in. Okay? I then have the ability to ask, or I have the question asking, what type of thing is being requested? What's it related to? It might be related to hardware. Maybe I want to have one of those USB signature pad devices. I would consider that a keyboard, mouse, or monitor. You need a USB signature pad. Okay, and now I can hit order. I see that the requested for actually carries forward from that other field that I filled out. I see there's details behind what it is I'm actually asking for. I now can submit my order. When I come to the request, I see the same thing. This time the requested for happens to be Audrey Edward, because remember I requested on behalf of someone else. I can now navigate to the general question. Now, one thing that I'm noticing here is that the general items that get created do create catalog tasks. However, the assignment groups are not filled out. It might take someone to review these particular items and say, well, this request is for one of those USB signature pads. I'm going to find the appropriate group to assign that to, and maybe I'm going to actually just give that to the Service Center. Service Center might handle all of our peripherals. Now the Service Center has a task that's been assigned to them, and someone from the Service Center can come in and take ownership of that particular task. There's another task here, though, with the state of pending. This is different than what we've seen in the past. Previously, with our other requests, you had to complete the first task before the second task would appear. The reason why this task is added here is that it might make sense to have someone at the same time creating the assignment for the first task to also create an assignment for the second task to the same group. That way, when someone takes this, we're going to have Jerry take care of this particular item. When I close the task, you'll see it takes them back to the requested item, but the task that was pending is now in a state of open. That task can be taken up by D, who also would close that task. Now when you scroll down, you see those two tasks are now both completed, and the overall request item is also set to completed. So that shows you 3 request items end to end.